My Worldview by Logan. It all started off on July 4th, 2006, when a young boy named Logan was born. I came out of St. Paul's Hospital and had my first car ride ever. I went home, to Steveston. At this time, I didn't know any proper words, especially not Worldview. All I knew was Mum, Dad, and home. I don't remember the car ride, but I surely didn't know what was coming up later on in my life. Since I was so young, I didn't really have any problems to worry about, so I enjoyed myself. Laughing, eating, mountain biking, playing soccer, and just all around having a great time. I also had a loving brother that played with me and made my time much better. I still didn't have a worldview, and I didn't know what it meant either, but that didn't bother me. I just cared about my family and home. I had as much fun as I could while it lasted, because I knew I wouldn't have this much time later on in my life. A few years later, I entered school. I learned about other people's cultures and differences, but I still didn't really know why they were different. I made one friend in particular. His name was Habib. Habib was from a family that was much different than mine. He didn't have as large of an income as we did, and he was a Muslim, so he didn't eat pork, which I thought was rude at the time, but I didn't know it was part of his religion. Now that I was friends with Habib, he helped me make more friends and had fun with them while still learning more about them. I still didn't really have much of a worldview, but I was getting to know more. Habib and I always played together. We were best friends. We didn't care that we were different. We just thought of each other as brothers, even though we didn't believe in the same thing or even look in any way similar. We got along very well. Habib and I met through our brothers. Without them, we wouldn't be friends or even know who each other are. The first time we saw each other, we already knew we were gonna click. This made my school experience much, much more fun, and I think he can say the same thing. Due to my new knowledge on other cultures, I managed to make more friends from different places. I was somewhat getting to know more about worldview and what was shaping me into the person I am today. Most of my friends were like me, coming from a white family and didn't value and believe in any gods. That's why Habib was special. Although Habib was much different in my friend group, he still got along very well with one another. Nobody thought of him as weird because he didn't look like any of us. I was making such great friends, and all of a sudden my parents decided to move to Deep Cove. When we moved, I was really sad to leave my friends behind, and it was super hard to leave Habib. When I first met Habib, I didn't realize that I was a lot more fortunate than him. His parents didn't even live together, so it was hard for him to manage, but he didn't show that. This broadened my worldview because I now saw how other families were different to mine and how I was really lucky to have my parents together. Before meeting Habib, I thought everyone was like me, but I was very wrong. I also didn't realize how lucky I am living in Canada, where everything I need I can get without working super hard. When I moved to Deep Cove, I got to do many things I didn't get to do living in Steveston, such as mountain biking, snowboarding, and kayaking. When I was living here, I realized the difference in cultures, and people had different opinions and views. This really changed how I looked at the world because I now saw that I was living in a society that had all sorts of beliefs and cultures. Unlike Steveston, Deep Cove has many people that value different things and are from different cultures. When I was living in Steveston, I noticed that there were many Asian people. This didn't annoy me, but I didn't like it too much. It was kind of irritating when I was walking into the village and I see a bunch of tourists getting in the way. It wasn't just Asians, but for the most part, it was. Eventually, I entered high school. This was a big change for me because I got much more homework and I had to manage my time effectively because I was much busier. I had gained a lot of knowledge and figured out that my point of view was just one tiny look of the world and there was much more to it. I learned that even though I'm not religious, religion still affects me and how I live. For example, I celebrate Christmas even though I'm not a Christian, and even simpler, I don't go to school on Sunday because it's considered holy day. Another thing I realized was most of these religious beliefs all have something in common that I would think is kinda weird and different. Just because someone believes in God, it doesn't mean that he or she does the same traditions as another God believer. From now on, my worldview has broadened drastically, and I now see things in other people's perspectives instead of just my own. The main reason my worldview is much bigger and better now is because of my friendships I had when I was younger. If I didn't meet Habib and Kevin, that I didn't even mention, I'd most likely still be figuring out different types of religion and worldview. Now I try to see why people are religious and accept them even though they are much different to me. I think my worldview has been affected the most by geography, because I've lived in a few different places and I've traveled a lot, and they have different cultural activities there. My worldview is nowhere near perfect, and I still have a lot of learning to do. The end.